Hi, and welcome to the newsroom.
I'm Emily Cohen.
And I'm Jordan Rikers.
And today we're going to talk about the Apartheid movement. The anti-Apartheid movement has been a movement that has been shocking the world as violence has escalated to an utmost point of terror for many people. This violence cannot be justified in terms of a Kantian ethical perspective and really in any ethical way except for universalism. But a really interesting way that we've been thinking about it is in terms of egoism.
Both sides of the protest, the nationalists and the protesters, have been trying to justify their actions, but we are trying to look at it from a more outside piece and try to explain the ethics behind the actual movement.
So, both sides have very powerful leaders, Mandela being at the forefront of the protesters, and recently Mandela has gotten a lot of international fame for making this movement more violent, which is against his initial beliefs. We would like to take this time to take an outsider perspective, as Jordan had mentioned earlier, and talk to someone who has been sending out these national addresses and has really been looking at this from an international and egoistic perspective. And here's an interview that Jordan did with one of Mandela's followers at the protests.
We are not afraid to die!
We shall sacrifice!
We are not afraid to die!
Here we are, live at the protest, the anti-apartheid protest. Here we are speaking with one of the protesters. What do you have to say?
Alright, here's the deal. We've tried all the peaceful things that we can do, and it's not working. So we have to resort to violence so we can fight back and win our freedom.
Interesting techniques. And to what means are you willing to go?
I have been fighting my entire life for this. I'm willing to give my life for this cause. We need our freedom.
As we all know, these protests have escalated to violence. What has caused such violence?
Our non-violence was met with violence, so it serves us to continue to be violent against that.
Oh, and here comes an onlooker. May I interview you?
Sure.
What's your profession?
I'm a school teacher here in Johannesburg.
And how do you feel about the protests?
I mean, they really hit my kids really hard. My kids are some of the people protesting here, and it hurts me to see them give their lives to this cause, which is so incredibly important to all of us. It helps us find our voice, and we really need to say in what's happening right now.
Very interesting. And how has this affected your school environment?
I mean, some of my students have been put in jail for fighting for their own advocacy. It's changed the entire face of our school, and it's making me scared to see my kids get hurt and beaten every day for something they need to fight
How
for.
has this taken a toll on you personally?
I mean, at the moment, I'm just so scared for my own life. Following all this intense violence and passion for justice, we're going to take a look at this national address that the nationalists put out in response to all the violence.
Dear people of South Africa, I address you today on behalf of the Nationalist Party. Recently, our streets have become filled with violence. This violence is the product of the anti-apartheid movement that is tearing down the system that is keeping our country together. The violence has been started by protesters such as Nelson Mandela, who recently we have put to justice in jail. The violence is not condoned by the government, but we have to meet what we face with the same level of violence and strength in order to hinder this movement that is trying to uproot the very system that keeps our country stable. Look at our economics. We've been thriving the past few years under apartheid. Apartheid is what makes South Africa great. It is our duty to stay in power. I am a good leader, and I will work to keep myself up high in power, working from my self-interest, which will save the community and help us to continue to thrive as a country. Although I'm not for violence, the violence that has been, the acts done by the police are entirely justified in order to hinder this movement that is trying to uproot our society. I want everyone to know the protesters who are out in the streets will face their justice. They are acting unethically. It is not okay to try to tear down a government that is giving them so much. Ethically, what we need to do is stay true to ourselves and continue to work in our own best interest, which means apartheid must stay. Thank you.
Now that we have both sides, let's look at the ethics of the situation. And ethically, using egoism, we are able to see why these people have such a passion for justice and intense violence, as their rights have been unethically taken away from them, and now is their chance to fight back and take a stand for themselves.
And thank you. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And as we hear more news about the anti-apartheid movement, we hope you use these ethical perspectives to fully see the justification of their violence. And thank you. Enjoy the because I'm terrified for my life.
The pencil's over there.
I'm terrified for my
What else
life.
am I gonna do? Sorry, I caused a commotion.
Are you though?
No.
Use these ethical perspectives to fully see the right.
That was so good. That was so good, Jordan.
Oh, wait, what do I say after this? See, I didn't finish writing. I didn't finish writing.
Ethical perspective.
Perspectives.
Ethical.
Yeah, that's going
Great.
Shut up, Tom.
to Shut up.
Get in
My
here.
English
Get in
homework.
here.
I'm doing my English homework.
Get in here.
I already did my thing.
For like 2 seconds.
Ethical,
Yeah, it was a
ethical,
good thing.
ethical.
I freaking killed it.
And as we all know, these protests have escalated.
We can't include a fucking.
Oh, yes, we can.